Hey, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to draw a simplified version of Panic from the movie Hercules, which was the foundation for the finished drawing that you're seeing right now. One of the important principles in learning to draw is to make something simple first, instead of focusing on the details too early in the process. Once you have a simplified version that looks good, then you should focus on the details, allowing the simplified version to guide you in terms of where to put your details and at about what size they should be drawn. This video demonstration is designed for you to be able to follow along and draw with me. I'll draw it nice and slow with plenty of real-time explanations of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. You should be able to keep up with me without any trouble. Before you start, I'd recommend that you download this border template, which is available in the video description, and print it out on a piece of 8.5 by 11 paper. Even better would be for you to get a piece of 12 by 18 paper and measure the border that you're seeing right now, with 1.5 inches of space at the top and bottom, and with 1 inch of space on the left and right. Don't forget to draw a reference point, which is a small cross, right in the exact middle of your piece of paper. I'd recommend you use a ruler and measure accurately in order to locate and draw that small reference point cross. Also, you can download this reference sheet, which I'll be using to draw my simplified version of Panic. I'll be referring to the Simple Shapes image on the left, and if you'd like to refer to it while you draw with me, it's available for download in the description of the video. So, if you're ready to have some fun, print out your border template or measure your border on a 12 by 18 piece of paper. Print out your reference sheet, grab your pencil and your eraser, and let's make a simplified version of Panic, that super fun character from the movie Hercules. As usual, I want to start with my line of action. And I think a good place to start is right here at my reference point. And from my reference point, I'm going to curve towards the right and towards my border, touching it about right there. Now, what I want to check before I get too far is to make sure this is going up enough. And I think if it touches my border somewhere about right, looking at this, judging this with my eyes, about right there. So this is like the first half of my line of action. And I want to draw that light, loose. I want to be careful with it because it's going to help me throughout this drawing. Okay, now my second half of my line of action. If I come in from my right border to the left, I want to make a mark on my bottom border that's about right. I'm thinking about right here, and I'll put a mark there. Now before I connect that like this, I want to come over here and I want to look and I want to judge at its closest point, how close is my line of action to my left border. And I'm thinking of a spot that is about, I think it's about here. Okay, once again, I want to be really careful when I start this drawing. Okay, so from my reference point, I'll continue downward. Once I kind of hit my mark over here, I'm going to begin to turn the line, and I'm going to make a rather sharp turn like this. And I want to curve right towards my mark, which I have down here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Nice and curvy down here. I'm thinking of a spot about right there. Okay, now I love to take my time on my line of action. I'm going to go over that just a little bit darker so you can see it. But as usual, I want you to keep your line of action and all your lines that you draw in your simple shaped stage as light as possible. Okay, so I'm thinking something like this for my line of action. Now if I want to check the shape that's created right here and compare it, I think that looks pretty good. And this shape here as well. Notice those two shapes that I've made. Okay, now the next thing I want to do, once I have my line of action in place, is I'm going to use my line of action to create the head of my character. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a mark for how far below my line of action the head, meaning that oval for his skull, how far down it goes. So I'm thinking something like this far below my line of action. Using my knowledge of negative space again, I'm going to come in from the right, and I want to make a mark at its closest point. How close is the head to my border? And I'm thinking it's something maybe here like this. And also I want to take a look. How wide do I think it is? I think it's something in here. Okay, so somewhere in this general area, I need to draw an oval. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start that. Once again, I want it to go this far down below my line of action. Curving around, obviously quite a bit more of it is above my line of action. I'm thinking something like this. Now again, if my oval is not the right size, I rarely erase at this stage. I just keep on going around until it becomes the right size and shape that I'm happy with. And again, this is my first shape I'm drawing. I need to get it right. It needs to be the right size. I need it to be in the right place. And I'm thinking something like that is about right. Okay, the next thing I want to work on is I'm going to work on his beak. Alright, so what I want to do is use my knowledge of negative space again, come in from my right border, and I want to put a vertical mark somewhere over here for how close, at its closest point, that is to my border. And I'm thinking something like this. That's going to give me some good negative space between the beak and the border. Alright, so I'm going to start this beak about right here, coming down my oval to a spot about right there. That's where I want to start it. And it's going to connect over here on this side, maybe about right there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start sketching that. I'm going to come down, checking to see how far away I am from my reference point, feeling pretty good about that. Then I'm going to bend it and stop there for a moment. I'll come to this side like this. I'm going to draw over, downward, hit that line somewhere about there. That looks about right. And I'll curve it, maybe like that. Okay, working on the other side again. Coming in, coming over, curving downward, getting much thinner with the shape. And I'm thinking something like that is about right for the beak of Panic. I'm going to draw over that just a little bit darker for you. Once again, keep your shapes nice and light. Maybe I need that to be just a little bit skinnier. Okay, and there's the beak for Panic. Alright, time to work on something easy, his mouth. So I want to take a look at my reference point right here. I'm going to come down my line of action to a spot that's about right there, and that is going to be the end of his mouth. Then I'm just going to draw from the side of his head downward. I'm going to go right through my reference point and connect with my line of action, and that will give me side of the mouth. Alright, bottom of the mouth. I'm going to curve down and over, draw this maybe a little longer than I need it to be, something like this. I'll come down the beak. I want to be somewhere about right there. That looks about right. Checking the distance from my line of action. And I'll curve out and over. I'm thinking something like this is about right for the mouth of Panic. Taking your time, of course, on these simplified shapes. Okay, now the next thing I want to do is I want to create a shape for his horns. Okay, so that should be easy for me because I'm going to use my knowledge of negative space. At its closest point, I'll just put a horizontal mark up here near my top border. I need that shape to touch that mark. And then also, I'm going to come in for negative space, and I'll put a mark about right here. And then somewhere on this line is going to be that point of that horn shape. Okay, somewhere over there. Okay, then if I want to locate that, if I judge from my top border coming down, how far down should I go? I'm thinking of a spot somewhere about right there. Okay, so I've located then the point of that horn shape. So what I want to do then is draw from the side of his head upwards with a nice curve towards that mark like that. And you can see me just barely grazing my pencil on my paper like that. And once I kind of like that, I'm going to go ahead and draw over that a little bit darker so you can see it. But I knew right where I was going because I positioned the corner of that shape, of that horn shape, as you can see. So I'm thinking something like that. Okay, and then from there, I'm going to slant upwards, and I'm just going to hit my line for negative space up here. Oh, about right there, and that makes it really easy. Okay, then that's going to touch his head shape, maybe about right here or so. That looks about right. And then I just want to go from here to here with a nice curving line. So I just go ahead and do that motion like that. And I'm going to come up, get that nice and curving, curve it over right towards the spot that I'm going to, right there, like that. Okay, and that gives me the nice large shape to be filled up by Panic's horns. Okay, now while I'm over in this area, I'm going to go ahead and work on his arm and his hand. And those should be pretty easy because I've got my line of action here to help me and a relatively small space up here. So all I want to do first is locate his elbow joint. So it's below my line of action about that far. It's about this close to my border, checking my negative space. That should be really easy. And then right here, I'll just draw this circle, relatively small like this, for his elbow joint. Once again, checking it from my border. That looks about right. And my line of action. There we go. That's going to be his elbow. Then I'm just going to go down the beak to a spot about right here. Then I'll just draw a slightly curving line, basically parallel to my line of action, and I'll connect that to his elbow joint, as you can see. Okay, his arm bone. Now I'm going to go ahead and start from his elbow, and I can see that it's going to slant in to the left just a little bit, and I'm going to draw this way longer than I need it to be, but I just want to get this angle going here for his arm. Something like that. Okay, I want to be really careful not to make his hand too small. Now before I think of that, I'm going to locate his wrist joint. So I'm going to judge the distance from this spot here where it crosses my line of action, and I'm going to come up to a spot that I think is about right here, and I'm going to draw a small circle. That's his wrist joint. Okay, and I think the distance from the elbow to the wrist, that looks about right there. Okay, now his hand. Now my negative space can help me here with the hand. So I'm going to be this close to my border, very close to my right border, like that. And then up here, I'm just almost going to touch my border. The negative space is really small. Okay. And then if I want to consider one more thing, how close should I be to this horn shape? And that might be something like this, judging this negative space. So that might be somewhere like that. So I kind of have this area right here that I want to draw this hand shape. Okay, so I'll start here. I'm going to curve inwards. And I'm going to go up and I'm going to go to a spot that's about right there with this curving hand shape like that. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Okay, then I'm going to bring this up, be right under my border, curving over, probably to a spot about right there. And that's the corner of the hand shape. And I'm just going to bring that down and connect it like this. So I've got this type of shape here going for my hand, but I need to fill that up. I think that's about right. Looks like it's about close enough to his horn shape. And there we go. All right, let's move on. Now, what I want to do next is I'm going to draw in a very large shoulder joint in this area here. Now, obviously, it's above my reference point. It's really close to my mouth. So a circle is about right in here. And I'll just go ahead and draw that. Once again, if I'm not very good at a circle, I just go around it a couple of times like this for a nice shoulder joint, as you can see there. Okay, now the little connector here, which I think is part of his wing, and I'll put that right there, and I'll curve up, and I want the point of this wing to be very close to my head shape, maybe this close, just a curving triangle, as you can see, like that. And that's one part of the wing, as you can see there. Let's do another wing shape. Now what I want to notice about this wing shape that I'm working on is that the wing tips, the points of the wings, the top of the wings, they're not straight across from each other. So I'm going to go ahead and draw an upwards slanting line like this to make sure I get the two wing tips at a different angle. How close are they? Check my negative space between the wings, and I think it's about right there. Okay, so what I need to do then is to draw. I'll start about right here, probably about the midpoint of the circle. I'll just curve this up like this, going towards my point that I made. I'm thinking like that. Hit that right there. That looks good. Okay, now I'm not quite ready to draw the body, but I'm just going to put a little mark right there, that body right there, as you can see. Okay, next thing I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and finish off this wing. Okay, so if I look at this, it's just going to go like this, kind of straight out to the left. It's going to curve over and towards my point like that. Again, I just barely graze my pencil on my paper, as you can see, until I'm sure about that. Okay, then I'm going to draw over that a little darker so you can see it. The nice curve of this wing coming up, nice and curving to this point like that, right there, point of the wing. I'll go with that just a little bit darker so you can see it. It's again nice smooth curve for the second wing, which is much larger than the first one. Alright, Looking very good so far. The next thing I want to do is I want to draw in the shape of the lower body. Now this can be a challenge, so I need to take a careful look at some things. So what I want to do is I want to come down my line of action to where I think the top of that body shape is. So as I come down here, I'm going to put a mark about right here, and I think that's about where I need to be for the top of the body, about right there. Okay, now coming down here, I need to look at my negative space. I need to leave room for the tail and the foot. So when I come up my line of action, I think I need to be something about right, something maybe about right in here or so. And I'm going to put a horizontal mark there. Okay, so what I need to draw then is I need to draw this oval for the lower part of his body. Okay, so let me sketch that in. I'll just sketch this in about half at a time, like this. I'll put this in nice and light. There's half of the oval, and the other half. And you want to make sure that your oval is kind of tilted and is following the angle of your line of action. So I'll just go over that until this oval kind of grows to become the right size and shape. Once again, I rarely erase when I'm drawing simplified shapes. I just go over it till it grows and becomes the right size. So as I take a look at that, that looks about right to me. And I'm ready to go ahead and connect that. So I'm going to go ahead and connect this body shape, and I'll connect it to his mouth. I'll just put a mark where I'm going to. It's about in the middle of the mouth, just like right there. So I'll just come off the side of this, curve up, curving at about the same angle as my line of action, and I'll come up about like that, as you can see. Then back here, I want to touch the wing about right there. And again, I'll just continue curving off this oval, curving up, following the angle of the line of action, going right towards my mark, as you can see. Right there, that looks about right. Okay, so there I have the oval shape for his body that I want to use. I'm going to make it just a little bit taller, as you can see. I think I was a little short there to start. All right, let's continue. Now, let's take a look at his foot, which should be pretty easy. So, I'm still on my line of action here, and I'm going to come down my line of action with a small negative space between the bottom of the body and his very small ankle circle. So that's really easy to see, and I'll put that about right there. So there's his ankle joint. Then, for negative space, I want the bottom of the foot to be about this far from my border, and so I'm going to mark that right there, so I know where I'm going to. Now notice that one side of the foot, there's not as much of it on this side of my line of action. So I'm going to draw that, hit right there. That looks about right. And there's much more of his foot on this side of my line of action. Okay, so when I put the other side of his foot, once again, much more of it, the right side, there's a lot more of it on the other side of my line of action. So I'm thinking something like this, and notice it's thin near the joint, it's a little wider near the middle, and I've got that nice foot shape, as you can see there. Alright, leg bone. Now notice that leg bone tilts up just a little bit, so I'll put this in like a stick figure right there. Then I want to really notice how close it is to my foot, so I'm thinking something right here. And notice that it's larger, the circle is larger than the ankle joint. So I'm thinking something like this. And then I'm just going to curve this up with a curving line, stick figure line for his thigh, and I'll just curve that up into the body right there. So I've got the leg and the foot or panic. Okay, second foot. So coming over here, what I want to notice is I want to compare the ankles. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line as if I was connecting those two ankles, because I want the second one to be much higher on my page. So I'm thinking that's going to be somewhere over here, and I'm going to go ahead and draw and check my negative space, like right there. So I want to put that here, a small circle for his ankle. All right, continuing. Now, what I want to do next, I'm going to go ahead and draw from the ankle, I'm going to draw a slanted line, and notice that it gets a little closer to the body as it goes up. Now I'm going to draw that longer than I need it to be. Okay, and there's the line for his leg bone. Now once I have this leg bone in position, the next question I have is how tall is the knee? So if I compare the knee to the top of my body shape right here, I can see that it's lower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down my line of action about right here, and then I'm going to bring it across with a horizontal line, and this is going to give me the top of the knee. And you can see I've got the top of the knee right here as a circle. Look how close it is to the body. And I've compared the location of the top of the knee to my body, so I feel really good about where that is. Then I'm just going to go ahead and connect the knee down to the body with a curving line for his thigh, right there. Okay, now his foot. Now, if I look at this, his foot is about at the same height as the knee. Okay, so I'm going to notice that. Then I'm going to check my negative space over here. So I need the foot to end up somewhere about here, checking my negative space again. Always want to be aware of my negative spaces. Now when I draw this foot, one of the things I want to notice is how close it's going to be to the knee. So I'm going to mark that right here so I know where I'm going to. I'm going to start from the ankle, I'm going to come up, cross the leg bone, hit my mark so it's close to the knee, be about straight across, bring it around, hit my spot for negative space. Feeling really good about that. Then I'll just go from the ankle, draw upwards with a nice curve, and I've got the shape of the foot. I feel really good about that. There we go. That looks about right. Okay, next thing I want to work on. I'm ready to go back up here to the top and work on his arm. So what I want to do for the arm is I'm going to look at my shoulder joint here, and I'm going to draw a slanted line crossing the wing. And once again, I like to draw these lines a little longer than I need them to be. Okay, so that's the angle of the arm. Then how far away is the elbow from the wing? So if I come up this arm line and put a mark about right here, that is where I want that to be. And I'm going to go ahead, that looks about right, and I'm going to draw an elbow joint right there. Once again, stick figure construction. Okay, lower arm. Now from the elbow I'm going to slant downwards at an angle, once again drawing this longer than I need it to be for his lower arm, like that. Checking my negative space. How far from my border is that elbow? So I'm going to put a spot about right there. And I'm going to go ahead and right here I'm going to draw this wrist. Small circle about right there. Okay, and the distance between the elbow and the wrist, that looks about right. Okay, it's a very unusual shape for his hand, so let's take a look at a couple things. very close to my left border. I'll mark my negative space here. And it's going to come up. I'm just going to go ahead and start drawing it from the bottom of this wrist. I'm going to curve up. Look how close I get to the elbow. That looks about right. Keep on curving up to a spot about right there. Coming to the bottom, I'll curve down, over, stop about right there. Curve up, hit my mark for negative space. And then I'll just want to curve this around with this type of motion that you see right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I did that really light. And I'm going to go ahead and continue that like this. This type of shape to be filled up by the fingers of panic. Okay. And I feel really good about that as well. Okay. Last thing to work on, we can't forget the tail. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to my right border, and I'm going to mark my negative space. I need the side of the tail to be quite close to my border, about right there. I'm going to judge my negative space from the bottom border. I'll come up to a spot about right here. Okay, so right in this area here, I want to draw a curving triangular shape like this. Okay, I'll get this coming up, put a nice curve into it. I want to notice how the top of it slants up just a little bit, up to the right. And this is the triangle, curving triangle for the tip of Panic's tail. Don't want that to be too straight. I want there to be a nice curve into it. Okay, and then the stick figure for the tailbone, I'm just going to put that connecting right there. Okay, so what I want to do is draw this tail and compare it to anything else I've drawn here to help myself. Now, one thing I noticed right away, it goes right through my knee here. Okay, so I'll mark that. It's going to touch his body about this far from my line of action. Okay, so I know it's going to start here. It's going to go through my knee, and it's going to end up over here. All right, let's go ahead and sketch that in. So I'm going to come down, and I'll just draw it really light. Come down like this. Begin to bend that, get that nice and curving. Curve up. I'm going to come through the foot. And I'm going to go into the knee. I'll stop for a moment and take a look at that shape, which I'm really liking right there. Like that. Okay, so I'm going to start right here now, and I'm going to finish over here. And sometimes I just like to have my pencil just barely graze the paper to get the motion that I'm going like this. And you can see it starts to show up really, really lightly. I'm going to draw over that a little darker so you can see it. Nice, smooth curve, curving over and connecting to my triangular shape for the tail. All right, this is a complex figure, and there you can see the simple shapes for Panic from the movie Hercules. So, how did yours turn out? I'm sure that if you are patient and careful, your simplified version of Panic looks great. Remember, the hard thing for young artists to do is to figure out how to get started. But if you've worked with me, you've got all of that figured out. Your drawing is accurate in terms of size and proportion, and now you're ready for the details. Use your simple shapes as a guide to help you know where to put the details and then about how big they should be drawn. As you draw the details, erase the simple shapes. As a reminder, the reference sheet can be downloaded from the link found in the description of the video. Thanks again for stopping by, and don't forget to keep on drawing.